I know what you're thinking. You've taken a look at a couple of gameplay videos and you're thinking that this is Left 4 Dead with cops and robbers instead of survivors and infected. And, well, you're more or less right. But to describe it as such is seriously misrepresenting it. Because Payday the Heist does something, indeed it's all about something, that Left 4 Dead doesn't do. Firefights. It's easy to say it's some Left 4 Dead clone, but changing the enemies from infected that punch and kick you to police that shoot you changes the way the game is played on a fundamental level. This factor, along with all the various other tweaks and changes made, make Payday the Heist as unlike Left 4 Dead as Half-Life is unlike Quake 2. Oh, and that aside, it's a really good game too. So you probably already know the basic premise. You play in a team of 4 robbers, either in single player with bots or online with other players, on one of 6 maps where your goal is to pretty much steal stuff. Unlike Left 4 Dead, the game doesn't have campaigns built up of smaller maps that connect together, but rather you simply play individual maps. Some are pretty linear, like a long road you fight your way down, while others, such as the First World Bank, are more like arenas where you move back and forth completing objectives. Each map will last 15 to 30 minutes per session, so the game is perhaps a little short on raw content, but the fact that each map has its own particular objectives and distinct style means that playing one map and then playing another provides 2 very different experiences, and this gives the game a much more evenly distributed replay value than Left 4 Dead. It's not simply the where that changes, but the what. While in Left 4 Dead it's only the where that change between campaigns, leading players to focus on their favourite campaign and pretty much ignore the rest. The First World Bank map, for instance. First you have to track down the manager to steal his keycard, then you use it to open a door where a drill and thermite have been stashed by your inside man. You then have to drill through a huge door and thermite your way through the ceiling of the vault before making off with the money, all the while keeping your hostages from escaping, destroying security cameras to reduce the police intel on you, and, of course, fighting off waves of police and security guards. But then on the Panic Room map, you have to steal a panic room filled with money out of the building, which involves cutting it free with circular saws, blowing open the roof with C4, and hooking the room up to your helicopter while moving up and down to different points in the 5-story tenement building as you complete different objectives, while also dealing with the police and the drug dealers you're stealing from. Clearly, they're very different, and then of course on top of this is the dynamic element facilitated by the AI director. If you're not familiar with it, this is a fancy bit of computer wizardry that randomizes certain important items in the game environment, as well as the numbers and composition of the enemy forces you fight, and where they're situated in the game world. I overstated the impact of the AI director in my Left 4 Dead review, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. The reality of the AI director is that rather than something being in the same spot every time, it's in perhaps one of 3 spots every time. And while this certainly helps the replay value, it does so only to a small extent. But, and this certainly applies more so in Payday than Left 4 Dead, I don't think you even need it. The firefights are so hectic and you're going to be far too preoccupied with taking cover and killing cops to care about where they're standing, especially as you move on to the higher difficulties. Something that bothers me about the difficulties, by the way, is that the maps are difficulty locked. You can play any map on hard or overkill difficulty, but only the first 2 maps can be played on easy and only the first 4 maps can be played on normal. I can't say I spend much time playing on easy or even normal difficulty in games, but if someone wants to be able to play map 6 on easy difficulty, they should be allowed to do that, and they can't for no good reason. As for the firefights themselves, they're pretty great. Many of the weapons have a great kick to them and have good sound effects, making the shooting really meaty and satisfying. Some others, the starting assault rifle in particular, are not so great, so it may take a while before you really start to enjoy this aspect of the combat, as weapons need to be unlocked. The fights start out slow with just a couple of basic enemies with pistols or other light arms, be they regular police officers, drug dealers or security guards. As things heat up, more advanced police with better armour and weapons show up, but it's during the assaults that the combat really comes into its own. Assaults are where huge numbers of police relentlessly attack you, so you can perhaps compare them to the hordes from Left 4 Dead, but they last much longer and are much more intense, and these sustained, intense firefights are pretty remarkable, and actually occur quite frequently. In addition to your regular health bar, which does not regenerate, you have a brief shield that can regenerate. You're going to take a lot of damage, especially on the harder difficulties, and this makes the game very intense. Health management is an important aspect of the game, but it doesn't get in the way of the shooting. This game definitely isn't trying to be a cover shooter, though obviously cover is a natural element of all shooters. Ammo management is similarly important, as it's very easy to run out of ammo during a sustained assault, which will force players to make intelligent use of ammo bags that can be dropped by some players, while the fact that downed enemies drop ammo may force you to displace, which can be risky and exciting. A lot of the environment is destructible too. It's definitely no fear, but you'll see windows and environmental objects explode, and even chunks of wall at times, and it makes the combat that much more intense. The enemy AI is solid. The pathing is flawless, and they have some cool moves like leaping out of the way of your shots and diving for cover, and they can even leap over gantries to drop down to lower levels. But they also tend to charge in only to get gunned down. Whether you consider this a good or bad thing is, I suppose, up to you, but the game is obviously designed with that style in mind. The bots, on the other hand, although they're just about as good as the enemy AI in most respects, there are some big problems. There are a couple of points on the first map where you blow a hole in a wall, and the bots are unable to move through the hole, forcing you to go it alone, which can make single player virtually impossible if the wrong enemies spawn. Likewise, on one of the harder maps, there's a point where each player has to grab a bag of gold and the bots won't. Even though this is predominantly an online game, this sort of thing really needs to be fixed. As well as the regular enemies, there are also special police, much like the special infected of Left 4 Dead, that add much to the combat and encourage, perhaps even enforce, teamwork. There's the Cloaker, who employs stealth and has his own unique pathing that makes him seem to appear from nowhere, and he can incapacitate you with a melee attack. There's the Shield, who unsurprisingly wields a massive riot shield. He's extremely dangerous in narrow corridors, and it typically takes two players to deal with him, one to distract him while the other flanks. There's also the Taser, who, again unsurprisingly, is sporting a taser gun. The taser causes no health damage, but you're unable to move while being tasered, and will eventually be incapacitated unless someone frees you. And then there's the aptly named Bulldozer. This guy is extremely heavily armoured, and it's going to take the whole group to put him down. He wields a shotgun that can incapacitate a player with one shot at close range, unless they're equipped with health or armour upgrades. Speaking of incapacitation, Payday has a very interesting way of dealing with it. If you get incapped, a 20-ish second timer starts and your friends have to revive you within that period. If and when it ultimately reaches 0, you're considered to be in police custody, and the fastest way to return to the game is with a hostage exchange, though you also respawn anyway after a couple of minutes. You take hostages by ordering civilians onto the ground and then tying them up. Every tied up civilian can be exchanged for one captured friend, so it's a very novel way of implementing lives into the game, but you also only have so many tie cords, so it's not like you can tie up every civilian you see, and if you don't keep an eye on civilians, the police will rescue them. It's a really good system that doesn't just work well mechanically, it makes a lot of sense within the context of the game. Payday uses an XP and level system. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. I fucking hate XP systems in online shooters. They work in proper role-playing games because those games are about building a character whose skill set you've tailored that lets you interact with the game world in your preferred way. Shooters, on the other hand, are just about shooting people in the fucking face, and all an XP system does is seriously and needlessly limit your ability to shoot people in the face until you've spent 15 hours playing the game. You earn experience points, represented in the form of money, by completing objectives, making it to the end of a game, picking up actual money in the game environment, and by completing challenges. Challenges are things like killing 100 enemies with a certain weapon, or reviving 10 incapacitated friends, or whatever. There are a whole bunch of challenges, and it's a very easy way to earn experience. Although you have no class yourself able to mix and match with any unlocks available to you, the unlocks themselves are split down into classes and you have to pick which specialisation, assault, sharpshooter or support, you want to focus on while levelling up. Not only are levelling systems stupid, it's badly implemented here. There are certain level limits imposed that force you to zigzag between classes. If you want to focus entirely on one class, guess what? You can't! You get to a point and you're forced to devote your time to the other classes until you reach a certain level, at which point you can return to improving your desired class. Even worse, you also unlock things linearly, meaning you have to go through a lot of crap you may not want to get the things you actually do want, even within your desired class. Thanks for making me unlock an accuracy bonus for pistols before letting me unlock the first fucking shotgun, Payday. That's just what I wanted. I never thought I'd say this about any game in my life, but in this respect, Payday should have been like Black Ops. The unlocks themselves fall into 6 categories. There's your primary weapon, secondary weapon and handgun, which are all self-explanatory, and then there's also deployable, equipment and crew bonus. Deployables are things like ammo bags or health bags that can be dropped for the benefit of the team. Equipment is things like extra tie cords for taking hostages, extra ammo or extra shields, while the crew bonus is a passive statistical bonus applied to your team. These are things like damage or health bonuses. Once you're approaching the 145 level limit, you'll find a decent number of options available to you, but the game is seriously lacking for weapons, and you're going to have to go through a lot of leveling to unlock class-specific weapons, meaning you're stuck with the basic assault rifle for quite a long while, regardless of your class. It would have made way more sense to give a level 0 starting selection of basic assault rifle, shotgun or sniper rifle to allow some small degree of specialisation right from the start, and then better versions of them as unlocks higher up. Why they didn't do this, I truly have no idea. Although this game is very much inspired by Left 4 Dead, one major L4D feature it's missing is additional game modes. In fact, there isn't even a versus mode. All you've got is co-op versus AI. Now this is all I want, so I can't say I care, but at the same time with the special police it seems like versus would be pretty easy to implement, and I don't know why it's not in the game. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried to sell it as a DLC in a few months, and the obvious qualities of this game are probably not going to matter to you if you want versus. The main thing to realise about Payday is that, although it owes much of its existence to Left 4 Dead, it's also a very different game that works not as a competing title, but as a complementary one. It's maybe a little short on content, definitely a little short on weapons, and the XP system is not just redundant, but very badly implemented. But then the combat is a lot of fun. The 6 maps are all great and there's fantastic variety in them, and ultimately, take a look at the price tag. This is a retail quality game, and a good one, at half the price.